Welcome to Prep Central, New Mexico's premier high school sports show. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University. If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on all your favorite platforms like YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. We hope you'll consider that. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source. Hi, everyone. On this week's Preps Central podcast, I'm going to talk about district tournament basketball, and I'm going to give you my reasons why I just don't like them anymore, and I think we've reached the point where these district tournaments have outlived their usefulness. We're going to talk about that. State tournament brackets coming out on Sunday. Talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to give a quick recap of state wrestling, of state swimming, and I'm going to offer a quick preview of Class 5A state baseball. The baseball season is underway. So all of that on today's podcast. I hope you'll give it a listen. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Preps Central, the Albuquerque Journal's high school sports podcast. I'm James Yodice. I am the Preps editor here at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome. Man, that's it. We're down to the last couple of weeks now of basketball season. We're going to talk a lot about basketball today. Before we talk about anything, I want to acknowledge our sponsor, Western New Mexico University. As always, we thank them for their support and their contributions to help make this podcast possible. We're going to talk a few things today, primarily basketball, although we're not going to talk results so much as a theory or a thought I have about district basketball tournaments. As I sit down and record today, it is Wednesday, the 26th of February. We're in the middle of district tournaments across the state, boys tournaments, girls tournaments. Look, for those of you who are old enough to remember, the district tournament used to actually carry meaning to it. Back when only the top two teams out of each district qualified for state. And for some people who are hearing this, perhaps for the first time, you're shaking your head and you're like, wait, what? That's the way it used to be done? That is the way it used to be done. The team that hosted the district tournament championship game would qualify for state, and that usually was the regular season champion. And then the other teams would fight through the district tournament for a chance to play in the district tournament final. And those two teams would qualify for state when the fields were smaller than they are today. So when we get into, district tournament semifinal games, which we're coming up on starting tonight, Thursday, Friday, district tournament semifinal games. Once upon a time, these games used to be hugely important. These were basically games that qualified someone for the state tournament, and the loser would not make it. So district tournaments look a lot different, right? Once the state expanded to 16 teams in the postseason field, to me, district tournaments became largely irrelevant. And I believe that as firmly as anything on this job. District tournaments are nice. They're extra basketball. And in theory, they are a last-ditch chance for teams that are clearly on the bubble or outside the bubble to maybe play themselves into the state tournament. But by and large, I don't like district basketball tournaments anymore, not with the 16-team playoff fields. These things seem completely irrelevant. A lot of people don't know this, but there are a lot of athletic directors that would tell you district tournaments are nice because they help raise money to pay for all the postseason awards that they do every year at the end of the district tournament when they announce their first team all district group and second team and third team, so on, coach of the year, the trophies and all that. A lot of people would tell you that these district tournaments are good financially to help pay for some of those things. I don't like them. I wish they would go away, largely because we just don't see anybody who's not already qualified play themselves into the field. And it has happened. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but the number of instances where somebody who's outside the bubble plays themselves into the field by winning the district tournament are so few and far between, it's not worth it. It just isn't. I mean, if we had several teams every year that were playing themselves into the field, the postseason field, that would be one thing. It just doesn't happen. So I'm one of those people, I wish the district tournament would go away. Maybe we could add a couple of games during the regular season and do it that way. So I don't mean to get on my soapbox about this. I just don't like them. I don't think they serve much of a purpose anymore. Now, having said all that, ironically enough, and I had planned to talk about this already today, and then ironically enough, just last night, Tuesday night, we had a situation come up that would stand in opposite of what I just said, and I will explain. So the Portales boys finished fourth in a 4-team district, with Artesia finishing first, then Lovington, then Goddard, and then Portales. So it's only a 4-team district. So the way they do their district tournament, the first round is 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. So Tuesday night, we had Artesia playing Portales, Lovington playing Goddard. So what happens? Portales, a team that isn't even ranked, a team that is ranked 15th. I looked it up today. A team that is ranked 15th in the Max Preps poll and 16th in the last coaches poll, beats Artesia, the number 1 ranked team in the whole state, beats them by a point. And suddenly, Portales, a team which is completely on the bubble to get into the state tournament field, now suddenly is in the district tournament championship game against Lovington on the 28th, which is Friday night at Lovington. So this is one, and maybe it's good it came up on this particular week since I'd planned to talk about my disdain for district tournament basketball. Portales now, a team that absolutely is not guaranteed of making the field. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. Now, Portales can play themselves into the state tournament if they beat Lovington on Friday night. The way it works in basketball, the regular season champion and the district tournament champion, if they're separate teams, both earn automatic bids to the state tournament, no matter what their regular season record was. You know, for example, say there was some team that finished 5th in a 5-team district, but their top 2 players were injured all year, and then they came back in time for the district tournament, and then that team goes on a run and wins district. Well, guess what? That team gets into state, meaning some other team that probably was already qualified is going to get knocked out. So Portales, here's the interesting thing. Portales, if they beat Lovington, they will get an automatic bid to the state tournament, even though they were the 4th place team in their own district, and probably would not qualify. Matter of fact, I would say almost certainly they would not qualify for state otherwise. In other words, if Portales' boys should lose on Friday night to Lovington, probably they're not going to get into the field. So here you have a situation where a team can win and play itself in, or lose and probably finish outside the top 16. And here's the reason why. They finished behind Goddard in that district. Goddard finished in 3rd place. The rule is, with the NMAA, and this applies to all the sports in which teams are selected this way, you can't get into the state tournament unless the team that finished in front of you in the regular season also gets selected. And here's the problem for Portales. Goddard is ranked, I think, 18th by the Max Preps poll, and that's not going to improve after Goddard lost to Lovington last night. And Goddard's probably not going to be in the top 16 when the coaches submit their votes for the top 16 come Saturday night or Sunday morning. I'm not sure what the deadline is, but all the coaches in each classification are asked, even required, to give the NMAA their top 16 teams in that classification. And that is one of the criteria points. Those votes are added up and tallied, and that is one of the criteria points for seeding and selecting basketball teams. So in the case of Portales, if Portales does not beat Lovington, then you're looking probably at both Goddard and Portales probably missing out on the state tournament, because Portales can't get in unless Goddard gets in, and Goddard's criteria is just not probably, I don't want to say 100%, probably not going to be good enough to get them into the field. So now you have a situation where Portales, a last-place team, can suddenly play itself into the tournament. So this is one of those rare instances I just talked about a few minutes ago, where a team that perhaps was going to miss the field, now suddenly is presented with a chance to have 32 minutes to play themselves in. So even Portales finishing ahead of Goddard in the district tournament doesn't really matter. It's the regular season finish that matters in terms of seeding and selecting teams. So Portales can't get in as a last place team in their district unless they win the district tournament because Goddard doesn't look like Goddard's getting in. And if Goddard doesn't get in, that means Portales definitely doesn't get in. And in fact, the NMAA can't even talk about Portales unless they get to Goddard first. So we have an interesting scenario, which I know contradicts what I said at the start, but that doesn't change what I believe. Instances like these are extraordinarily rare. And when you consider Portales beating Artesia, Portales not just unranked, but completely way down the list unranked, this is one of the most stunning results of the whole boys basketball season, truly. I've seen Artesia play. This is a really good team. They're big. They're athletic. This is a really good basketball team and deserving of a number one. I've talked about this before. There's no clear best team out there in 4A. There are a lot of good teams. I'd say there are probably 8 or 10 teams if they get hot at the pit might win it. Artesia is one of them. They do, the number one ranking doesn't bother me. That's a good team, but they're not clearly number one. And in fact, this result almost confirms what I've been saying all year, what all of us have been saying all year, which is Class 4A boys basketball is a total crapshoot. When you have a team like Portales completely off the radar, beating the number one ranked team in the state on the road, that's crazy. In a larger district, a team like that would still have to go on the road and probably win at least one, maybe 2 other games. In a 4-team district, Portales is lucky. They've only got to win 1 other game to get to state. So, although I think district tournaments should go away in basketball, they're not going to. This is just my personal point of view here. They're not going to go away. Here we have a situation which creates probably what will be the most unique championship game of any of the larger classes in boys or girls, with a team that almost certainly is not getting in unless they win the district tournament championship game. And now here they are with a chance to do just that. So we'll see how that plays out. That game is Friday. We have district tournament championship games going on Friday and Saturday all across the state, including here in the Albuquerque metro area. I'll be watching quite a few games on Friday and Saturday. I usually don't cover much basketball during the district tournaments until at least Friday. Until the games get, super interesting. So we will have the state tournament brackets Sunday afternoon about 5 o'clock, I'm told, for public consumption. That's give or take. That's what they're hoping for. And we'll have the top 16 teams in each of the 5 classes announced. And, of course, I'll be breaking that down quite a bit next week with Adam Deal, actually, from 101.7 The Team. He co-hosts their afternoon show. Also does Cleveland High home basketball games. So Adam's going to be here in studio next Wednesday, and we're going to talk. We're going to do a double podcast day. We're going to do one for the girls, one for the boys, as we kind of preview the state tournament fields. So we're down to it. Semifinal games, second round games being played across the state tonight, even tomorrow. Semifinal games in district tournaments. I think there are even a couple tonight. And then we'll have the rest Thursday and Friday, and then a boatload of championship games around the state in district tournaments on Saturday. Okay, let's move along. We'll do a quick recap in case you missed it of state wrestling and state swimming, both of which occurred last weekend here in the metro area. Volcano Vista's boys became the first APS team to win 3 big school state championships in a row. Volcano Vista scores 261 points. They beat Cleveland by 21 in the standings. 240 points would get it done just about any year for Cleveland, just not this year. Volcano showed extremely well at the Rio Rancho Event Center. I think they had a dozen or so placers, and I think 11 of them finished in the top 3. There were 13 weight divisions. So Volcano Vista was excellent and consistent across the board. Not all of their guys that were expected to win state did. But that's okay. It's usually about depth. And frankly, this is the first time, I think, since the Rio Rancho and Cleveland dominance that we've seen another school step in and start to take control of Class 5A boys wrestling. Volcano Vista looks very strong. They're going to have a bunch of really good kids coming back next year, too. So congratulations to Volcano Vista. They win state. Aztecs boys took the Class 1A through 4A state title. The Four Corners showed very well in that classification. And then we had the Cleveland girls winning state this year for the second year in a row. Individually, a couple of the highlights. There's no time to get to everyone. I, of course, want to mention Mason Posa from La Cueva, who won his fourth individual state title. Roman Luttrell from Cleveland, a junior, also won his fourth in a row at a much lighter weight. And Roman next year would have a chance to join that super rare five-time champions club in wrestling. There are not many members of this club, so Roman Luttrell from Cleveland could join that list. Mason Posa probably would have been on that list if he'd been allowed to wrestle as an eighth grader, but that eighth grade rule for APS didn't come into play until he was already a freshman at La Cueva. But Mason goes out and wins his fourth title. I've covered state wrestling quite a long time. Most of the 4- and 5-time state champions that I have interviewed usually are at the lower weights into the middle weights, usually like about $160. That's about the highest weight usually you'll see a kid become a 4-time state champion, maybe 172. Mason Posa went out. He won at 160 pounds as a freshman, I think 189 as a sophomore, 215 pounds last year, and then he went out and won the heavyweight division last weekend. It is extremely rare to see a 4-time champion come from the heavier weight classifications. Usually it's the lighter kids. Roman Luttrell from Cleveland is a very light kid. I don't think he's wrestled above 121 or 127 his whole career. It's unusual to see a heavier kid come through and win 4 titles. So congratulations to Mason Posa, who caps just an unbelievable career both in football for La Cueva and in wrestling. And of course, he'll be leaving for the University of Wisconsin after he graduates. And he told me he has no plans to do a spring sport. So this wrestling tournament was it for Mason, who is maybe the state's best overall athlete. You would have a hard time convincing me someone else is. And we mentioned Roman Luttrell, a West Las Vegas kid. I believe his name is Cruz Martinez. He won his 4th title in the 1A through 4A bracket. So we had those 3 kids all win their 4th. Congratulations to them. Very hard to do. And the side note about Mason Posa, his dad, Javier, who coaches La Cueva, had 3 titles back when he wrestled at Santa Fe. And now Mason has 4 to his dad's 3. And you better believe Mason is going to lord this over his father as long as his dad will let him. I think the radio host Jim Rome calls it scoreboard, and that's what it is. Mason's got 4, Pops has 3, and now Mason gets to rub it in a little bit. And I know it's gonna bother Javier. He's gonna have the red ass a little bit about this, but hey, look, 7 between the 2 of them is a pretty awesome achievement. Moving over to swimming and diving, Albuquerque Academy had a fantastic weekend in their home pool. They won state titles in the big school division. Cottonwood Classical Prep, which is right next door to the Journal here in the Northeast Heights, won the small school trophies. Swimming and diving does it a little bit unusually. A team like Cottonwood or Santa Fe Prep or whoever, they compete with all the bigger schools, and then the NMAA awards a trophy to the school outside Class 5A and 4A. They award a trophy to the top performing smaller school within the team standings. It's a little bit unusual, but that's a new wrinkle they added several years back, which I loved, because otherwise the smaller schools had no chance. And this is really the one sport where you were only giving out 1 trophy. So it was a nice thing that they did. And now some of the schools outside, Academy or La Cueva or El Dorado or Los Alamos, the really good swimming schools, now the smaller schools have a chance to win some trophies too. So Cottonwood Classical wins titles, boys and girls, and Academy wins the larger division. One last note I want to get to before we get out of here today, and I have a big baseball preview that is on the Albuquerque Journal's website right now. It's largely Metro-centric. If you're watching this and you're from outside the Albuquerque area, apologies. It's hard to do one on a statewide basis. My baseball preview appears in the Albuquerque Journal in the print edition today, Wednesday, and it is available on our website, a much longer version on our website. So baseball season is underway. It began last week for some schools. Other schools got underway yesterday, Tuesday. Other schools still are going to be opening this weekend, like La Cueva, the defending 5A state champion. La Cueva is opening on Saturday with 2 games at Volcano Vista. Look, La Cueva is clearly the number 1 team as we start the preseason anyway. La Cueva completely deserving of all the preseason accolades. I believe there are at least 2 different lists that I have observed that had them nationally ranked, like in the top 100. But they're clearly the best team as we start the year on paper. And the reason for this is pretty simple. La Cueva's pitching is just astonishing. They've got their top 3 pitchers are all headed to Division I programs. You have Braden Reynolds, who was last year's Gatorade Player of the Year, pitcher, first baseman, broke the state record in RBIs on top of all the great pitching that he did. He's a senior. He's going to Grand Canyon in Phoenix. Dylan Blomker is a junior. He's already committed to LSU, which will tell you all you need to know about how good he is. And he arguably might end up being this team's ace. Hard to say. And Braden Reynolds this year is moving from first base to third base. I don't think that'll be a major problem for him. But Dylan Blomker, another outstanding pitcher. He's a junior, committed to LSU. He'll sign next year. And then Everett Burdett is committed to Oregon State, just like the Kamatz brothers that went to Sandia. So you got 3 Division I level pitchers on this staff. This is going to be a problem for everybody going forward if these guys remain healthy. And as long as La Cueva swings the bats even just average with this kind of pitching, they're going to be a problem. You're going to have to find another pitcher that's equally as good on a certain day to beat La Cueva. So that will be the challenge for teams going forward. La Cueva also has another big tournament coming up next month in Phoenix. Same tournament they went to last year. They're going to face a whole bunch of teams, including, I think, at least 2 in their bracket state champions from other states, either from Arizona or Utah or Nevada, I think is what Coach Gerard Pineda told me. There are a whole bunch of state champions from other states in other classifications going to this tournament. So that may be the biggest test La Cueva has the whole season. We'll have to see. And I should mention, too, La Cueva has another Division I signee, Reed Jacobson, their second baseman, who's going to be a Lobo. So you're talking about 4 bona fide Division I athletes right there. So La Cueva, going to be fun to watch. I know Coach Pineda is pretty excited about this group. And like I said, if their pitching holds up, boy, it's going to be a tough chase. And there's some good teams out there. Cleveland, which lost... Cleveland was an out away from beating La Cueva in the state championship game last May, and then walked home 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th, and they lose the game 3-2. That was tough. That was as tough as any loss I think I've ever witnessed a team have to take in this job. Cleveland's going to be back pretty good. They've got good pitching, a lot of good players returning, and there are plenty other good teams just here in the metro area. Los Lunas, I think, is going to be better than people think. This is a team that made it to the quarterfinals last year and almost beat Cleveland in the quarters. Los Lunas is pretty loaded. They're going to be a factor. Rio Grande from that district is usually very good. Sandia and El Dorado from the La Cueva district are teams to watch. Coach Mark Hilton from Sandia told me about a sophomore who didn't really pitch last year. His name's Colton Floyd, about 6'6", 220, already getting looks from some top-notch Division I programs, including in the SEC, which is generally considered, the best of the power conferences at the next level. I haven't seen him pitch. I'm looking forward to that. El Dorado had a big season last year. I think they won 21 games. They beat La Cueva in the regular season and then lost to them later in the quarterfinals. They're going to be okay. Rio Rancho's always in the fold. Volcano Vista has a new coach, Scott Brandt, who used to be the Sandia prep coach and led them to a couple of state titles. Volcano's a team I'm not sure about, to be honest with you. They've only got several kids with varsity experience. So I don't necessarily have huge expectations for Volcano here in February. We'll have to see how it pans out. And you have to remember, too, Volcano Vista starts the season basically on probation because they got a first strike in their last game of the last season, which was Game 3 of that first-round playoff series against Los Lunas. And both their team and their fan base had a first strike called against them by the NMAA. So Volcano Vista cannot afford any other incidents this coming spring, either with their fans or with their team, or they face a much harsher punishment. I wouldn't expect that to come to fruition, but I wanted to mention Volcano starts with a strike, both fans and team. So they got to stay clean and stay quiet. I'm not sure what to make of Volcano. Outside the metro area, Carlsbad, I think, is going to be a little bit better this year. The Southern District, Centennial, I hear, is going to be pretty decent. Las Cruces, Oregon Mountain was in the semifinals last year. A lot of people may have forgotten that. They lost to La Cueva in the state semifinals last year. So Oregon Mountain, that district with the Knights, with Las Cruces, with Centennial, should be a lot of good baseball. We could see multiple teams end up coming up here and making some noise. Not sure about the Northwestern teams. Farmington and Piedra Vista are switching districts this year. They were in District 2 with La Cueva and Sandia and El Dorado. They have been moved to District 1. So now that district, which is already really good, has Rio Rancho, Cleveland, Volcano, Cibola, Farmington, and Piedra Vista. Atrisco Heritage left that district for District 5, where you have Los Lunas and Rio Grande, Albuquerque High, and West Mesa also. And then Capital, Santa Fe, and Manzano moved from District 5 into District 2 now with La Cueva, Sandia, and El Dorado. So we've had some juggling because of realignment since we last had a baseball season. So we're going to see how it goes. Everybody's chasing La Cueva. We'll see how it goes. Last year, La Cueva was the favorite and nearly lost in the state finals because they ran into a kid from Cleveland. I think his name is Ethan Vasquez. I hope I got that right. Who pitched fantastic and kept him in the game and gave Cleveland a chance to win it. So we're going to see how that pans out. Real quick, other classifications. Grants won the 4A state title last year. Grant's going to be solid again this year. They got a good number of kids coming back. They're in a tough district with St. Pius and Belen. Belen has a new coach, but they should still be pretty good. Pius lost in the quarterfinals, I think, last year to Artesia. Artesia is another one of those teams outside the metro area that we're going to need to watch out for. But I think Grants is the team to watch, and I think they're probably not quite as a dominant number one as La Cueva, but probably they open as the preseason favorite. Here in the metro area, I know Pius is looking to make a deeper run this year. Albuquerque Academy, they're hoping to make a good run. And there are other good teams here in the metro area, Valley, Hope, Belen. All these teams could end up, making the state tournament, getting into the final 8. We saw quite a few teams from the metro area get into the quarterfinals in that division last year. The other defending state champion is Robertson in 3A. They beat West Las Vegas last year in the state final. East Mountain from here in the metro area looks like the strongest challenger. Sandia Prep has a new coach in Matt McCoy, who coached St. Pius to a couple of state championships just within the last half dozen years. Matt has taken over at Sandia Prep. They're kind of young. East Mountain, probably the best team coming out of that district. And East Mountain has a new coach as well in Ryan Santillanes, former Atrisco Heritage coach. And he was coaching at the college level in Mississippi at a Division I program last year. And then he's back. So East Mountain's a team to watch. Oak Grove and Manal were a co-op team last year, and they combined to win the 2A state title. Manal is not contributing any players to this arrangement anymore, so it's just an Oak Grove team. So Oak Grove as the 2A state title, hoping to repeat, and we'll see how that goes. They've got a few pieces back, so we'll see how that goes. It's harder for me to predict the lower divisions because I don't get a chance to watch them very much, and I think there's more volatility. So, so baseball starts, softball starting. I haven't done my softball preview for the Journal yet. That is coming either later this week or maybe even early next week. I'm going to jump right into spring sports after basketball ends on March 15th. As I said, the state tournament brackets for basketball will be out this Sunday, March 2nd, late afternoon, about 5 o'clock. The NMA will have a whole show releasing the brackets. Next week, as I said, Adam Deal is going to come in. We're going to sit down and break down both state tournament brackets. We're going to talk about, teams to watch, not just the favorites, but teams that are a little bit off the radar, some of the top players to watch, and so on. And then, of course, we'll be at the pit starting the following Tuesday, which is, 13 days from now. So a lot of basketball coming up. over the next 2 weeks. So make sure you tune in next week. We'll have double podcasts. You can find this podcast at abqjournal.com. You can find it on YouTube if you subscribe there. You can find it on any number of platforms. Once again, we thank Western New Mexico University for their sponsorship of this podcast. So enjoy the basketball the rest of the week, and I will see you next week with Adam Deal, and we're going to talk nothing but state basketball. So I hope you'll join us. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.